All right, YouTube, proving once again that he represents a rather strange, somewhat outdated mode of thinking, and that he is a glutton for punishment and doesn't really have his pulse on the American public. Ted Cruz has decided to go after the transgendered bathroom stuff again. I mean, what the fuck is he thinking? He going into the next slew of states that are voting, we've got state that leans blue, which is New Mexico. We've got deep blue, New Jersey. We've got Indiana, which is kind of a swing state, sort of leans towards the conservative side. The Pacific Northwest, which is like left libertarianism land, and then California, which is about as liberal as you can possibly get. These are the and West Virginia, where Trump's leading by like 25, 30 points and is off the table. These are the states that are up for voting, and Ted Cruz chooses this time to go after transgendered people in the bathroom. His idea being, well, grown men shouldn't be in the bathroom with little girls or something. Well, first and foremost, that already happens. You'll notice that there are changing tables in bathrooms sometimes for this reason. There are already unisex bathrooms all across the country. A person who is fully transitioned and transgendered is generally going to not be seen as a problem if they're going into the bathroom of a gender opposite their birth gender, I suppose. So it's not like this wasn't already happening anyway. It's just that it has become an issue. Gay marriage has sort of died out as the chosen conservative moral issue of our age. Gay marriage is now codified, so that's a dying ember of evangelism. Now they've got to focus on people who are transgendered. Now, I warned before, I mean, we should get ahead of this and just nip it in the bud and not even bother having an argument over it because it's retarded. It'll be another wedge issue that'll drag on for a decade or two and make people miserable. And finally, in the end, the evangelicals will lose. I would like to point out they can't use the whole Bible argument on the transgendered issue. There's nothing in there that remarks upon it. It doesn't say, well, it's a sin to cross-dress or whatever, or to, change your genital structure in some way. So I'm not sure exactly why a Bible thumper, or pretend Bible thumper, like Ted Cruz, because he's really not. He's really a trust fund baby sort of blue blood. But he's like George Bush. George Bush pretended to be all pro-Jesus as well in order to get the votes of gullible single-issue evangelicals too. I'm failing to see how this is really a religious argument. He says, well, it's an issue of common sense, that this shouldn't be happening. I think you'd find it's already happening. Now, some time ago, we had this same controversy briefly in a school. I can't remember exactly what state it was in, where a transgendered student was able to use the bathroom of their choice. And some people were protesting there, and of course it boiled over into politics at large. And I said the same as what I'll say now. I don't fundamentally care what bathroom a person uses. I think the very idea of having like a male or a female bathroom is a little weird anyway. I never really saw why it was necessary to do so. I like to think the average person's not a serial pervert. And you look at like the Catholic Church, you got a bunch of men, they're like priests, and they're all diddling little boys and stuff. So obviously segregating by gender doesn't stop pedophiles. It doesn't, or some classes of pedophiles. It doesn't stop perverts from oogling other people. Now you hear about gay people in the bathroom using a glory hole or something. Well, this sort of stuff isn't going to stop that from happening either. So I'm not exactly seeing the moral outrage. I'm not exactly seeing the problem. The only problem I can see is that somebody who isn't transgendered isn't, they just put on the other set of clothes, put on some makeup and walk into the bathroom specifically to be a pervert. But what's stopping them from doing that now? I mean, other than whatever the fuck retard state has the transgendered law now with their bathrooms, and you've got sort of the PC police trying to determine what gender they are, dragging them off if they don't believe them, I suppose. There was some lesbian student that they didn't believe she was actually female, and I would assume she would sue for this, being dragged out by the police when trying to go piddle in a toilet. I'm not really, I guess I just don't get the moral outrage. I never got the outrage over gay marriage either. It's like, who the fuck cares? It's not like banning it's suddenly going to make, if your argument is fundamentally moral or religious in nature, well, it's not going to stop anyone from being gay. It's just going to stop them from getting a state contract that relates to property. It has nothing to do with religious marriage. I thought that was dumb. It made conservatism, which got conflated with evangelical sentiment, and in some ways it crosses over. It does overlap, but it's not always. It made them look like a bunch of backwoods, hateful bigots. It made them look like they didn't really know what they were talking about. They were just sort of stuck on the idea that Jesus was their president or something. And that's really what's happening here. You have a bunch of people with their feigned religious rhetoric, half of whom have been divorced or cheated on their spouse or something. Some of them are drunk, some of them fucking, smoke heroin or something. And they're pretending to be holier than thou over this specific class of people that really, I don't feel threatened by transgendered people. I think you can have a healthy debate over the mental process behind what causes a person to become transgendered. I said years ago, for instance, I said there are certainly people who are not biologically homosexual who have adopted that lifestyle for some sort of social reason, just as there are people who are actually homosexuals who live a completely straight lifestyle and pretend to be happy with that for social reasons. Well, I think the same should probably be considered true of transgendered individuals. Yes, there will be people whose own natural chemical biology, that is the biochemistry behind their body, is male or female, whereas their physical sexual makeup is not. You could class it as a disorder. Yeah, they used to do that with homosexuality. Ultimately, though, does it really affect me? I don't give a fuck. If a person's transgendered, it means absolutely nothing to me. No, I'm not going to feel threatened by it. And no, I don't feel threatened by the idea of them using whatever bathroom they happen to choose either. It's a stupid issue. We've got so many things in this country right now that are going wrong. We've got a fucked up military that's been fucked up specifically by Obama and also by constantly being drained of its resources by war abroad by people like Bush and Obama. He's kept the war going. In fact, it's even more expansive now. It's just more hush-hush. We've got military problems. Our economy is basically a disaster. We've got a porous border. We've got terrorists all over the place. We've got a national debate over surveillance and over other aspects of our very core of culture, that is liberty versus security. Can they coexist? Which one's supreme and so forth? I take the side of liberty being completely supreme, but that's just me. We've got all of these bigger things going on, and Ted Cruz chooses this specific time in our history when all of these other things are on the table and being talked about to whine about who's using what bathroom. I don't see the issue here. I think that you are probably safer going into a unisex bathroom than into a Catholic church. But Ted Cruz will never admit to this fact because he's playing up. He's trying to get the far right and the religious voters in Indiana especially to flock aboard with him, as a contrast to Trump, who has openly cast himself as ambivalent. Now, remember, apply this to gay marriage and abortion because he has the same opinions on all three. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what bathroom you use. He doesn't care who you fuck. He doesn't care. He just doesn't give a fuck about any of these issues. I can assure you of that. I mean, I can look back to the 90s and find solid evidence of this fact. When he pretends to have a major overhaul, a major change of heart, he's not being entirely genuine. Yes, he's pandering a little bit when he does that. As opposed to Cruz, who he's openly pandering to, he's just pandering to the other side. Cruz pretends to be this like hyper-religious individual that says Jesus, Jesus all day. At the end of the day, he was born in Alberta. He wasn't born out in the sticks of Kansas. He does understand the Constitution, although he pretends in many cases not to understand it. He's an urbanite individual who happened to go to Texas for business reasons and political reasons. It's not like he lives on a ranch out there and farms cows all day and then just shows up to vote like some fucking retard butter cow cowboy. That's not who Ted Cruz is. When he pretends to be like this, the last time we had an authentically very religious individual in office was Jimmy Carter, who was a liberal Democrat a literal bleeding heart Democrat. Ronald Reagan was questioned about his religiosity. Why don't you go to church, Mr. President? Well, I don't want other people to get hurt if someone tries to attack me. It was a cop-out. It worked. It was a brilliant cop-out. It really fucked Mondale over, but let's face it, that's what it was. Herbert Walker, all he ever cared about was money. Bill Clinton, not generally known as a particularly religious individual, let's face it. George Bush Jr., a.k.a. W., he wasn't religious. It wasn't like he went to church every day to hear some priest or pastor tell him which laws to veto or anything like that. Yeah, he made Jesus Day a national thing and did all this other warped bullshit, but he just did that in partnership with his response to Iraq and Afghanistan and 9/11 in general in order to win more popular support over at a time where people sort of felt like they wanted to be unified, even if it was under some religious bullshit. Obama, not known to be religious, is very multicultural in his religious attitude. Specifically, by that I mean he loves foreign religions and pretends not to care about Christianity for his fans, his younger fans especially, who are more irreligious. Ultimately, at the end of the day, he's probably a deist or an agnostic. He just doesn't give a fuck. Trump's not religious. He can pretend that he is all day, all he wants, but I can read him like a book. He's not a religious individual. Spiritual, maybe. Maybe he believes in the Christian God, but does he let it carry over into his business life? You're not going to find anybody who has amalgamated billions of dollars in business who is completely honest in their dealings and doesn't believe in things like graft and bribes and usury. It's just not going to happen. He'll use every trick in the book at his disposal under the law and sometimes outside of the law to make his money. Ted Cruz does the same thing. The difference is Ted Cruz is pretending to be a really, really religious individual on an issue that doesn't even relate to biblical commentary. There's nothing in there about being transgendered. There's nothing in there about bathrooms, other than, the concept of baking your bread with shit, which appears several times in the Bible. I guess it was an act of penitence or something like that. Or maybe they were just saying, oh, we're out of wood, we got to burn like cow shit now in order to cook our food. It's just not in there. So you can't turn it into a religious issue. It's not within the Christian religion. It doesn't say anything about cross-dressing, transgendering yourself, taking hormones, or getting sex change surgery or whatever. It's just not there. I fail to see what the problem is. I don't feel threatened by it. No, my opinion wouldn't change if I was female or if I was younger. I mean, come on. There could be a gay dude in the bathroom while you're there who's getting turned on by the sound of you shitting, or some anal gay dude or something like that. But that doesn't mean that you have to have like segregation of bathrooms for straight versus gay individuals. I would think that would be about as pragmatic as this concept. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't make sense. Are you going to have a bathroom? You're going to have bathroom for straight men, bathroom for gay men, bathroom for straight females, bathroom for gay females, single cell bathroom for bisexuals because they're scary to everybody, bathroom for hermaphrodites, bathroom for the asexual. Pretty soon, all your stores and schools and everything, it'll just be like rows and rows of these weird Tumblrite bathrooms with all these Tumblrite identities in them. It's almost like the right wing really wants sort of that weird Tumblr world in which everybody has taken up some specific static category that they feel makes them unique and special, and they need their own bathroom. Like you're going to have a bathroom specifically for bisexual Croatian midgets or something like that. That's ludicrous. It's strange to even think that that's the sort of way that we would want to go as a nation. So as far as this, I mean, Cruz is just pandering. He probably doesn't care either. He probably doesn't care. It's like Dick Cheney has a lesbian daughter. He pretends all day to be so hyper-religious and, Jesus Day, patriotism, apple pie, and fireworks. At the end of the day, he's got a lesbian daughter. Obviously, he didn't feel the need to try to beat some sense into that girl like some rube living out in the middle of Kansas might do. Because he's just a fucking rich urbanite. He doesn't give a shit about that sort of thing. He's not hyper-religious. Even though he was corrupt. I mean, he shot his hunting partner in the ass with birdshot. So, let's not fool ourselves here into thinking that Ted Cruz's religiosity is really genuine, because we know it's not. The things that he claims to want to do don't sound very Christian to me, unless you're talking like Middle Ages Christianity, in which, okay, go kill people, because that's basically what you're supposed to do for God. Most modern Christians don't go full Deus Vult mode. I know there are some who wish that it was like that, but that's just not the way that the average Christian feels. And this, of course, transgenderism in bathrooms don't even appear in the Bible, so why the fuck do you care? Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, I suppose the Christians would say, or some permutation of that. And if he thinks it's going to help him in Indiana, just check the latest polls. Trump's like 15, 19 points ahead in these polls. It looks like Ted Cruz is going to get knocked out in a few days. Well, good riddance. I mean, he's not eligible. He's a fucking Canuck, for one thing. He's retarded. He's obsessed with, like, butter. And anytime he gets near his daughters, they like shy away from him. It's starting to make me think that maybe there's some domestic issues going on in his household. He's just all sorts of messed up. Even to look at him physically, he looks messed up. Like there's something, like he's been eating too many fried steaks or something like that, pretending to be a Texan every time he goes out to the restaurant. He can't order what he really wants, which is caviar and fine imported Polish vodka or something like that. He's got to eat the fried steaks, and so he just gets buttery and fat and like misshapen, and his face looks like a big blob of dough that was kneaded into a very poor semblance of a human visage. That's Ted Cruz. That's what he fucking is. At least Trump, he's running for the GOP. He has the balls to say he doesn't give a shit about the transgendered issue. That actually takes some balls from a person who's actually running a serious campaign. You might expect to hear it from the lone gypsy moth Republican or something from a few decades ago. Yeah, I don't really care. Homosexuals, yeah, let them marry, let them fuck each other in the ass. Anti-sodomy laws, what the fuck are those? You wouldn't expect to hear it from a mainstream GOP candidate even as recently as like 2008. But now you are. You've got a healthy, sane alternative to the sort of weird neoconservative fake evangelism that we've had for decades now that really has fucked our nation in partnership with a bunch of retards over in the Democratic Party like Obama and Hillary Clinton. And yet people are still like holding back and they're saying, oh, I'm not sure if I want to support Trump. He's your best candidate. There's a reason he's got the most delegates right now. It's not all because, oh, well, Trump just shocked the shit out of everyone. No one knew how to stop him. No, it's because what he's saying largely makes sense. I have my reservations about what he says, and I'm not even really aboard the Trump train. I say, yeah, he's the best Republican candidate. Jim Webb was the best Democratic candidate. I'm still a Gary Johnson fan at the end of the day. Pragmatic libertarianism as opposed to like purism that can never be implemented until you get a pragmatic libertarianism in to fundamentally overhaul a few basic aspects of an abusive system so you can make way for more libertarianism. But yeah, Trump is clearly the only person left in the race that has common sense. Kasich, he's too busy eating. Cruz is too busy talking about Jesus being his VP. Trump has openly proclaimed doesn't really give a fuck about these moral issues. That's something important. The GOP hasn't seen a candidate like that since Reagan. Everyone since then has pretended to be even more religious. Reagan pretended, yeah, I go to church, I'm religious, I get preached to by my personal pastor or whatever. But at the end of the day, a lot of people saw through that as well. They didn't care because the economy was going well at the time. Well, the economy's sunk into a pit right now. People don't really care about the transgendered issue beyond sort of Cruz's hardened supporters or the really far left that has taken it up as sort of a moral cudgel. You'd think of the Sanders of the world or something like that. I don't care. I don't give a fuck what bathroom you use. If you're being perverted, it shouldn't matter whether you're a dude, a dudette, what you happen to be. You should get dragged off in irons for being a pervert, especially if you're like oogling some little kid using the urinal or something. But if you're just going in there to take a piss, take a shit, and fart a little bit, does it really matter? Yeah, I don't really care. There's a unisex bathroom in the anthropology building at UVM I used. I didn't give a fuck. Nobody else seemed to give a fuck. Girls and boys went in there to do their business. They weren't going in there to do anything else. Probably people hooked up in there occasionally. But they could do that in a gender-segregated bathroom, and nobody would have even really given a fuck, to tell the truth. That's about all. Peace out.